Android, iOS. Two different systems with two very different types of followers. In the Android camp, you have the tinkerers, the nerds, the folks that love living on the bleeding edge. On the iOS side, you have the mums and dads. You have the so-called designers and the Apple sheep. Now, in the interest of being unbiased, I recently decided to try out Android for 30 days to form my own opinion on what makes it tick. Now, I grabbed a Pixel 4 XL to do this with. Wanted to get the cleanest version of Android that I could. So in another video, I'm going to talk about what makes me warm and fuzzy about Android and what I like. But in today's video, we're going to be looking at three things which I think Android is actually missing in 2020. Here we go. Okay, so here it is in no particular order. The three most important things that Android is missing in 2020. Number one, a decent messaging service. Now, communications between humans is pretty important, and without it, we kind of go a little bit nuts. So Apple solved this really early on with iMessage. It was easy to use, it included all the features that you want, and most importantly, it was baked directly into the phone. On the flip side, Google's got a really bad history of collecting new messaging apps and creating them and selling them to the public and then letting them die on the vine. First, there was Google Talk, then Google Huddle, then Google Hangouts, Google Allo, Google Duo. Well, you kind of get the picture. The problem has never been that they can't do it. The problem is that they do it too much. Now, if you're using a Google Pixel like I am, it's not as bad. Google's looking to implement and roll out RCS across the board. But even then, they've had a few bumps along the road trying to get carriers to implement it. Then there's the whole problem with OEMs like Samsung or LG who still want to use their own proprietary format. It's crazy, it's complicated, and it's why we can't have nice things. On the iOS side though, Apple users don't even need to think about this sort of stuff. I mean, with messages now integrated between everything, like from the Apple Watch to the iPhone, even the iMac, it's just seamless, easy to use, and like I said before, it's baked in. Number two, software updates. Now again, as a Pixel owner, I can't really complain about this because they're the best when it comes to updates. It's one of the reasons why you might buy a Pixel in the first place. Now the problem is no one really buys Pixel phones. If you look at the smartphone stats over the last 6 months, Google's usually bundled into the other category, way below Samsung and LG. But I'm getting sidetracked, so let's ignore the Pixel for the minute. The rest of the Android manufacturers are pretty vague about how long they keep phones updated to the latest version of Android outside of the standard stuff, the security updates. And to be fair, there's a really good reason for this. When Google releases a new version of Android, they send it off to the phone manufacturer. So once they tinkle with it and do their customizations to it, then they need to send it over to the carrier. And then they have it. And they start having their fun and tinkling with it and doing whatever they need to do. Then that goes back and forth between the manufacturer and the carrier until everyone's happy. Eventually, maybe, it ends up on your phone. That's the problem. By the time this happens, the next version of Android's probably out. So it's just a complete waste of time. Now, some manufacturers are better than others, but many simply just don't care. And they expect you to upgrade for the next year with a new phone. Now, Google is trying to sort this out. So for the last couple of years, they've been trying to separate the core Android functionality away from the bulk of the operating system. So then they can run updates through the Google Play Store, which is done really well. I get updates on the Pixel all the time for the different core services, which is a great idea. It's a really clever solution to the fragmentation that is Android. But you just can't compare with what Apple do. Here's an example. Apple released iOS 13 last year. It supported phones from 5 years ago. Okay, it wasn't the best experience, but it still offers it. Okay, stretching out your investment of an iPhone over 5 years, should you want to, really negates any kind of Apple tax that you may have paid in the first place. And finally, number three, tech support, app quality and privacy. That's 5. But you're not going to watch a whole video on 5, so here's some extra ones for free. Tech support in Android is not great. If something goes wrong with your Android phone, apart from speaking with your carrier, you're really out of luck. And if you do have an issue and you send it to your carrier, they'll send it back to you, wiped, and say it's all fixed. I've had that before. Either way, you're kind of in deep poop. No one wants a bar of you. Now, if you have a problem with your iPhone, it's a totally different experience. You pop into an Apple store, speak to a friendly human, and they help you out. It may cost you some money, but you get a result, okay, which is amazing. When you talk apps, the mainstream apps are pretty close, okay, unless you're talking about Snapchat. Remember Snapchat? It's really bad on Android. So most of the time you find an Android equivalent on the Google Play Store that's easy enough and nice enough to use. What I have found is that there's a certain fit and finish to an iOS app that you don't always see on Android. I do give props to Android's material design theme though. Not all apps use it, unfortunately, and many just don't really care. It's actually a similar situation between Mac and Windows. Most Mac apps have a similar aesthetic, while in different versions of Windows' own apps or utilities, it can be like you've time warped to 98. Classic. Finally, privacy. As a regular iPhone user, you tend to feel, and this probably is way off, you feel safer. I don't get that feeling on Android. Not in a, I'm going to be attacked by a terrorist kind of way, but in a kind of, I feel like I'm being watched kind of way. But in Google's defense, that's how they make their money. And they're up front of how they use your data. And besides, if you install the Facebook app on any phone, you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to follow you around wherever you go. So there you have it. 3 or 5 reasons what I believe Android is still missing in 2020. Maybe they'll fix it, maybe they won't. Some things maybe just can't be fixed. It's just the way it is. What do you think Android's missing in 2020? Do you think I'm wrong? Comment down below, and if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more great content. That's it for this video, and we'll see you in the next one.